Welcome to the Raising Boys and Girls podcast. I'm Sissy Goff.
I'm David Thomas.
And I'm Melissa Trevathan.
And we're so glad you've set aside a few minutes to spend with us today. In each episode of this podcast, we'll share some of what we're learning in the work we do with kids and families on a daily basis at Daystar Counseling in Nashville, Tennessee. Our goal is to help you care for the kids in your life with a little more understanding, a little more practical help, and a whole lot of hope. So pull up a chair and join us on this journey from our little yellow house to yours.
The Raising Boys and Girls podcast is brought to you in partnership with Minnow. Minnow provides meaningful screen time and shared experiences for families to help you grow in your faith together. Check them out at podcast.gominnow.com. That's podcast.gominno.com.
On today's episode, we're going to tell you a little bit more about what goes on within the walls of our yellow house. And we're going to start with Melissa, who is our founder and executive director and started Daystar in 1985, which David and I always like to point out is when we were still in high school. So, Melissa, will you tell them a little bit about how Daystar started, how you got the idea?
Okay, on that encouraging note, I do want to tell you a little bit about what was happening in the 80s, and I will only say one word that would describe what we wanted to encourage kids during that part. We were wanting to help them feel special. And that was what I was continually, as head of a private school and teaching religion and just being the head of a spiritual side. Also, I had worked in several churches, and every year I wanted so much. We wanted for kids to feel that they had a special relationship with God and to see that really overflow in their lives. And I felt like I was saying it mostly to myself. And then I began to see that kids really were not connecting the word, the truth, with what was going on in their lives. And they really didn't even know how to express those feelings. And then I began to see with that kids really talk to each other and that they learn from each other how to talk about things. And so during that time, I was so excited and started Daystar Counseling Ministries. And I started with a group of kids. And because kids teach me a lot, they were the ones who really helped set up the model of Daystar Counseling, along with Dr. Dan Allender and Dr. Larry Crabb, but the kids had the biggest voice there. And in Daystar, our desire was to let kids impact kids because they make a difference. They hear a lot of voices, but it's those voices right next to them that really reflect the deepest longing and thirst that they have. And so during this time, groups became very, very important. And we'll go on and tell you some more about our counselors and how it was set up. But as far as the name Daystar, let me just take a minute to say I really wasn't sure what to call this organization. And so I went to a friend who had really mentored me in many ways and knew the Bible backwards and forwards. And she said very simply, 2 Peter 1:19. And that is really talking about as a light shines in a dark place until the day dawns and the day star rises in your heart. And I thought, that's it. A light shining in a dark place, because there are dark places that so many of the kids couldn't talk about and couldn't really be able to express with each other or anyone for that matter. And so until the day star rises in your heart, and we say, we are the Daystar to each other until he comes back again.
I love that so much.
Me too.
And even that the motto all these years has been one life touching another, and that's what it continues to be. And even, Melissa, that you were, we joke about 1985, but really, I think we would both say when we were growing up, we didn't know people who were talking about counseling in counseling. People weren't talking about their feelings. And so the fact that you had the vision, that God gave you the vision to start this is amazing. And then a few years later,
I came upon two counselors that really took off with Daystar.
And we do have to say why you hired me, really, because I was a grad student at Vanderbilt at the time, had just moved to Nashville from Little Rock, Arkansas, was so excited about the music in this town. And so I went to an event called An Evening in December that Daystar is a nonprofit. It was one of our fundraisers. And my favorite, actually, I think I could say both of our favorites at the time growing up was Amy Grant. We were huge fans of our friend Amy Grant, and she was singing at this event, and she said that Larry Crabb said, "You were the best counselor for adolescents out there." And so I immediately knew, having read his books in college, I wanted to work at Daystar. So I came in and interviewed with Melissa, and she hired me maybe a week later, I think. And tell them why you really hired me.
Well, I was so thrilled because Sissy brought this amazing gift of playing the guitar, and
y'all, I'm a terrible guitar player. I can barely play the guitar. But that's why I've worked at Daystar now for almost 28 years, is because I played the guitar.
We go a little deeper now in hiring our counselors.
Yes. But I think the vision of this place, that it was so relational but went deeper with kids, just hooked me in. I mean, I remember sitting with you in my interview with tears in my eyes. And now the fact that here we're in this yellow house and we have counselors and we have dogs on staff who are a part of our ministry. And we have, I think, 1,900 families currently that are coming. It just is such an amazing place. And we have groups numbering in the 20s. I don't even know how many group counseling sessions we have per week here. And that's continued to be a part of that idea of one life touching another. And I sure have found that in my work with kids it's fascinating. I mean, we all do individual counseling and we do groups as well. And I can sit with a child in individual counseling and say the same thing over and over. But when they hear it from one of their peers, it's like they had never heard it before. It just rings true in this whole new way. And so it just has so much impact. So we have these groups, and we also have several versions now of camps. I mean, it's expanded into so many different things. We have a day camp that meets here out of our offices. We have our own little version of a summer retreat program in Kentucky, where, again, it's that idea of kind of as we're going along counseling, and that sometimes the richest conversations with these kids happen sitting on a boat. And so the vision that has just continued to multiply in such beautiful, amazing ways. And I don't even know the thousands of people that have been impacted by Daystar at this point. And I think David and I would both say it just feels like such a privilege to be a part of it.
Kids are just so hungry and thirsty.
And
it's unbelievable how responsive they are. And they feel like someone really cares about them.
Mm-hmm. Which is what we get to do. And we talk about that in our summer retreat program as we're training our staff. We talk about how Larry Crabb said at some point that everybody needs somebody who will jump up and down over them.
Yeah.
And that we get to be a counseling practice in a yellow house with dogs on staff where we just get to jump up and down over kids with hopefully a lot of counseling training too.
That's right.
Seems like such a great thing.
Being older, I'm not jumping quite as high, but trying to.
David not far behind you anymore.
Oh, no.
But I do want to say two things that I learned off the bat when I came on staff at Daystar that still impact me so much. And one is that you would talk about how nothing is ever so bad in your life that you can't give. And I think in a world of counseling where we're coming in to talk about our pain, that there's still this important truth of you can still give, and that's even woven into the fabric of what this place is about, and that we have kids who are in high school that come back and help younger kids at our retreat program or with groups, that it's just part of the model. And it's interesting because it ripples over into the other idea, which is that the most dangerous place to be is when you don't believe your life makes a difference, when you don't matter. And that's when we always talk about being afraid of kids and suicide. And so the fact that kids are here sharing and learning and growing and counseling and then have a place to give back too, it just feels like all of it is furthering the idea of that God made you, He loves you, He delights in you, and He's called you. And that we get to reflect all of those things to kids just feels like a gift on a daily basis.
Yes.
We are so thrilled to be partnering with our friends at Minnow to bring back the Raising Boys and Girls podcast. We all know that devices are here to stay. So if you want to make screen time meaningful for your kids, Minnow is for you. A new streaming service designed just for kids. Minnow has over 2,000 episodes of fun and faith-filled shows that have been carefully curated by moms, dads, and church leaders, so it's safe for your family. Check them out at podcast.gominnow.com. That's podcast.gominno.com to start your free trial.
And then 4 years later,
I am still wondering about why you hired me, because I can't play the guitar. I don't bring a lot of skills to the table.
and I especially want to know why we hired you, because you had a bob at the time.
At the time, had completely forgotten that.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, there just are so many questions about why I was hired still to date.
You're
but
a guy.
I needed a boy.
We need a boy. Yeah.
I'm sure thankful you did need a boy, and grateful that I get to be at this amazing
too.
place.
So thankful.
So I was writing for a Christian music magazine, and I
Yes.
interviewed an artist that you were
that I was
road
working
managing
for.
for. Right. And said, I'm in grad school for counseling, and I've heard about Daystar, and I'd really like a job. And I said, that's so nice, and we're not hiring. And then came and told Melissa, and she said, what? I'd like to meet him.
Melissa, thank you for answering that
You're so
differently.
sorry.
Welcome. You're so welcome.
She shut me right down.
Uh-huh. Everybody
we
has
are.
a voice. Uh-huh.
So thankful for all those connections.
Decades of working together, the
know.
three of us. It's pretty amazing.
I know. And to hear you even go back and talk about the why from the very beginning, and to think about that still being the work that happens under the roof of this house 30 plus years later. And just so honored to get to be a part of that. And was thinking about all the ways we get to do that when I was listening to you, Sissy, talk about camp and groups and meeting with kids individually. And one of the other things that we all three love doing is thinking about ways to support parents. And we also offer what we call parent consultations, which is a little bit like a well visit with the pediatrician. So parents coming in and just asking questions. We kept noticing that more and more parents were asking questions like, does this sound normal to you? Is this normal? Because there are different pockets of development where I think kids struggle in some ways that can leave parents really scratching their head and wondering. And so from that, really thinking about all the different ways that we could be supporting parents, even beyond the walls of this house. And so the three of us have been so grateful that we've had the privilege to write some books and teach parenting classes across the country and do this podcast now, that we can really take what we do under the roof of this house outside of this house into so many different places. And that's so much what we hope can happen as we talk around this idea of intentional parenting in this coming season. And we want to end each episode with what we're going to call 3 intentional practices. And let's do some right now, right out of the gate.
So the first practice that I think we probably all collectively would say one of our favorite feedback we ever get from parents, and I had a mom say this to me this week. She said, you know, you're the reason why we have a dog. And I always think, yes, I made a difference. But we talk about that so much with families, because I couldn't count on however many hands I could have the amount of time I've heard kids say things like, I remember a girl saying who had lost her dad, she said, the person that I like to talk to the most is my dog, which is so sweet on so many levels. And just kids that will say they feel safest in that setting and with their pups, or I'm sure maybe cats do the same thing. I don't think goldfish pull it off, but we just can't say enough about the importance of pets. And I'm going to talk probably more about girls as we move forward. But I think for girls especially that have such a hard time at school, and that other girls can be so cruel to walk in the door of your house and have an animal that is wagging their tail or sidles up next to them and wants to be with them and thinks they're the greatest thing in the whole world, is just so life-changing for them at certain seasons of development. So mine would be get a dog. Melissa, what would you add?
I think one of the things that matters here at Daystar, and it's so simple that we miss it so often, it's that kids want to connect. And it is through the dogs. It's through the smell of popcorn and cider. It's through, hey, I'm glad to see you. And it may be going outside of the basketball, but it's that connection. And for parents to say that that's what lasts. It's the quality of a relationship and connection there that is so very, very important. And that's why I say it's simple. And we miss it and try to go so deep sometimes, but they long for connection.
I love that. And I think out of that connection and relationship, one of the places that we want to always be challenging families is to think about helping kids find purpose, that we believe it is so needed, and talked a little bit earlier about the different ways that we take the work of Daystar outside of this house. And we've tried to do as much good as we could think to do on social media of helping families think about practical ideas for helping kids find purpose in their communities and schools and so many different places. And it makes me think about, we had an opportunity recently to meet Jay and Catherine Wolf, who are the great folks behind Hope Heals. And I think they are such intentional people, intentional human beings and parents. And I think about what they have written that they talk to their boys about. And I think, I wish every parent would say a version of this over the kids you love, of just, God made you to do the hard thing and the good story He's writing for your life. And thinking about how I think that calls kids to purpose in a really remarkable way. So we're excited just to think on more and more intentional practices as we talk through this season with you. And go get a dog if you don't have one already. Keep focusing on connection and relationship, finding purpose. Melissa, thanks for telling that story today and just reminding all of us about being light in the dark. Thank you.
And thanks for hiring us.
Yes, despite
so
not
far,
having
so
any.
good. How long has it been?
And you're going to be back with us at the end of every episode. You're going to close us out with a spiritual moment. We're excited about that.
Oh, I'm excited about that. Through Daystar, I've learned, but it's when that truth really touches on the deepest longings that kids have. So I am excited.
The Raising Boys and Girls podcast is brought to you in partnership with Minnow. Minnow helps you make screen time meaningful for your family with shows kids love and values parents trust. Check them out at podcast.gominnow.com. That's podcast.gominno.com.
It's our joy to bring the experience and insight we gain through our work beyond the walls of the Daystar House. Join us next time for more help and hope as you continue your journey of raising boys and girls.